Hello, this is Mrs. Taylor, and I'm going to show you how to graph a piecewise function. So our function here is f of x equals x plus 2 if x is less than or equal to negative 2, and 3x if x is greater than negative 2. And so for this function, at x equals negative 2, my function will switch from one of these expressions to the other. And I'm not really sure yet. There's a possibility the two pieces could meet, but sometimes they don't. If they do not meet at the same y value, then I have to have open and closed circles. So we'll go through all of that. To start with, we're going to create a t-chart, and your t-chart needs to include some values, x values, that are less than and greater than your dividing x value here, negative 2. And so what I suggest is that you create a t-chart with negative 2 in the middle, so you make sure you have some values less and some values more than negative 2. So what I have is I have a t-chart with negative 2 as my middle x value here, and I chose some values less than negative 2 and some values greater than. You can put as many values as you want in your t-chart, and depending on your graph, you may use less or more. Once you plot your points, you may realize that it's not enough information, and so you may need some more points. Or if you are familiar with parent functions, then you probably won't need as many points. So either way, we're going to evaluate and start with x equals negative 4. Negative 4 is less than negative 2, so that means I use this top expression, and that would be negative 4 plus 2, which would be negative 2. So negative 4 plus 2, and then that would equal negative 2. And then negative 3 is less than negative 2, so I'm going to plug that into this top piece. So that would be negative 3 plus 2, and that equals negative 1. Negative 2 is equal to negative 2, so I'm still using this top expression, negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. When I get to x equals negative 1 is greater than negative 2. So now I switch down to this bottom expression to evaluate, and it's 3x, so that would be 3 times negative 1. And when you're multiplying and you use substitution, you use parentheses. That would equal negative 3. And then when x is 0, that's greater than negative 2, so that would be 3 times 0, and that will equal 0. So now I have some points that I can plot on my graph. Remember, x is left and right, y is up and down, so my first point, negative 4, 2, I go to the left 4 and down 2. Right, so left 4, down 2. And then negative 3, negative 1, 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, 0. And then negative 1, negative 3, 1, 2, 3, and 0, 0. Okay. So now that I've created my t-chart, I have some points on my graph, I can kind of get an idea of what's going to happen. I can see that I'm going to have a piece of a line this direction. I'm going to be increasing up until here, and then this line will be increasing starting here and up. The next thing I need to do is figure out my open and closed circles. It's clear that these two are not going to meet at the same y value, so it means I'm going to have an open circle. If I plug negative 2 into the top, I get 0, and it's equal to negative 2. So that's why I have a closed circle at that point, 0, at negative 2, 0. But if I plug negative 2 into this bottom, I get negative 6, which is down here, and it's not equal to negative 2. So that means that I have to have an open circle at negative 2, negative 6. And so negative 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it needs to be open, so I'm just going to white out some of this here to show that that is an open circle, not a closed circle. So what I have is line. Here. I have a line starting at x equals -2 and moving out to the left. That goes with the left piece, the less than here. And then I'm going to have a line that starts here at x equals -2 and travels up like that. And so that would be the graph of my piecewise function. I created a t-chart, plotted those points. I plugged this x value that separates the pieces into both of my expressions to get my open and closed circles. And then I connected my points. And that's how you graph a piecewise function.